So Tommy Nendick, thank you for coming today.
Mr. Simon Selly, thank you for having me.
It's
What's
great.
going on?
It's good to see you.
It's great to see you.
How
How
was
are
the
you?
drive? Was it good? Easy drive?
Yes, it's actually quite nice out. Surprisingly, it's like 85 and decent.
Were you at the kitchen all day?
Yeah, I start work usually around 4 to 5 a.m.
Okay.
So I work like what they call baker's hours. So I work like 4 o'clock till 2 p.m., hopefully, but mostly it's 4 a.m. to 4 p.m., kind of starting your own business and things like that. There's just a lot more work that goes into it. I could work till noon and still have enough paperwork to easily work till 4 or 5.
How? When did you actually officially launch the company?
We started this January, so
Okay.
we've only been in business roughly 6 months as Murder of Crows, um, which is nothing. It's the beginning stages. It's exciting at this point, but it's also tedious kind of things that you're getting through, like signing up for state taxation and getting liability stuff and a whole bunch of other angles, of things that are just needed by the state for a restaurant, period. You have to have, so many licenses. There's allergens licenses, there's food safety protection manager licenses, there's state tax licenses, there's being in the restaurant business is like being taxed for your tax on top of your tax that you just got taxed for while being taxed in the first place that I think you got taxed for
Yeah.
in the beginning.
I think we know the feeling.
Yeah,
You know it more than most as a business owner.
I think it's Illinois. It's just honesty. It's just super taxation. I was in Wisconsin learning how to cook with cannabis for about 2.5, almost 3 years. And they have no state taxes up there. Their retail products, at least. So your gas and groceries and things like that, you don't pay as much in Wisconsin as you do in Illinois.
So Wisconsin's not a legalized state, though, is it? Or recreational, is it?
No, Wisconsin actually, Delta 9 itself is not legal. So Delta 9 is simply one cannabinoid out of many. There's 23 that we can point out right now that we can actually make pop on a test. So we can actually test for specific of 23 cannabinoids that we know. We know pretty much what their functionality is and their importance kind of in non-Western medicine or pain relief or, for fun. Everybody likes to de-stress and unwind, and not a lot of people like to do that with, or not as many from what I hear, don't like to do that with alcohol because they have kids and it's tough to recover in your 40s from a hangover. I mean, I haven't drank in 14 years by choice because I had a little bit too much of it in my life as a chef. So that's just brutal honesty. I haven't done any drugs or alcohol in 14 years, and it's been so much better working with or finding out about cooking with cannabis because my love for fine dining and my career and everything that I worked downtown at some really, really nice restaurants. Um, two of them rated the world's best restaurants while I was working there. And that's something, I'm really part of to have been part of those teams, but those restaurants are closed now and, it doesn't really matter. What's left is the talent that was sparked from those kitchens. So I'm happy I found cannabis because it's kind of a rejuvenation of being able to change people's lives. Because if you've had one of the best meals of your life, you remember that meal. And that's what we consistently try to do with our edibles and with the private diners or dining experiences that we do. We cook for 10 to 20 people, but we keep it limited because it's really high end food that we're doing for them that's infused with completely legal cannabis inputs. So, we not only make edibles, but we actually do live cooking. I mean, you could have steak and crab legs with infused butters or any one of your pastries, like this here is, a 25 milligram Kit Kat that we have hazelnut wafers in between, yeah, there's caramels that we make, we have chocolate mousse cups, truffles, and a whole bunch of things that I can't even talk about because it's it's intellectual property at this point. So until it's actually turned into something and named and has lab reports and stuff behind it and is a feasible product to sell, I really can't talk about too much of those things. But
It's all right.
the basics, of what we make, caramels, nut butter cups from scratch. We don't use any pre-made nut butters and things like that. So we have cashew, almond, peanut butter, macadamia nut, pecans that are
Good
candied.
stuff. Good stuff.
Ridiculous.
Can I bring you back?
Sure.
I have a question.
Please do.
I think that what intrigued me the most is that you weren't somebody that just wanted to get into the cannabis industry. It's a hot industry right now, and people are looking for somebody they can trust.
Yeah.
But I think what got me is you were a chef for many years before this, and so I think the moving into the cannabis, it was easier for you, and you could still deliver a good product.
Yeah.
So what I'm interested in too, and you had mentioned you work for two pretty big restaurants in the city. You don't have to name those, but how do you even get started in the restaurant industry? I mean,
bad life choices, I guess.
okay, so bad life choices leave you
Terrible
here.
life
Walk
choices.
me through that just a little bit.
So off Route 53 and almost Hobson, there used to be a restaurant called Superosa. And so
Okay.
I started there when I was 14 years old and
Doing
started
what?
washing dishes.
Fair.
And then I worked my way up to the pizza line and being a busboy, and then a busboy and a food runner, and then a food runner and a cook. And that's when I had like my first cooking job, was at the age of 15 going on 16.
Without formal training.
No formal training at all. And from there, I moved to a place that I'm actually really happy to talk about, and that's Cochon Sauvage. And it's owned by a guy named Mike, and he owns Michael's in Winnetka and George Tra. And it was a French restaurant, and it was a bistro, but he also had a 4-star restaurant called Les Du Gros.
Okay.
He cooked with John Banchet, who was an amazing, well-known French chef that had stars all over the place for 17 years at La Francais in Wheeling. So I got to work with Mike. That was his executive chef for like 4.5 years. And that's really where I kind of cut my teeth. The other two restaurants were, a lot of microgreens and, like new conceptual things, foams, and it just pulled sugar and weird, I don't know, spherification, all sorts of stuff. Like French food is classic. It's, fatty, it's rich, it's delicious. I mean, that's the reason why foie gras is as good as it is, or truffles. It's mostly in French food, and so I owe a lot to Mike. From there, take it to my first job, which was Cochon Sauvage. And then after that was working downtown.
Okay.
At two really nice restaurants for about 5 years. 80
So
hours
how
a
old are
week.
you when you're working at these two restaurants?
Oh,
How old are
man,
you?
Like 23 to, I don't know, 22 to 27-ish,
Okay.
28. And then by 33, I had to get sober. It's just alcohol was something that I could no longer have in my life. So I kind of had to distance myself from the kitchen for a while. And that's just being honest, with me and myself and the program that, I've gone through and continue to work on a daily basis to keep sober. And I haven't been arrested. I haven't punched a cop. I haven't had my head kicked in by a cop. And a whole bunch of other things that are related to drinking and driving and hard drugs and things like that. But when you cook for a living and you're working 80 hours a week, hard drugs are like taking an aspirin. It's considered nothing in the kitchen world until you see one of your friends overdose, or something like that. And then you get a real check on like, holy cow, like Frank overdosed last night. He's not coming in. Like, that's brutal because you just cook with that guy.
And that's a lot of it is
3 feet away for the last 3 years.
And you said it's a result of a little bit of the grind then, right? Too, the hours you're putting in, the
80
effort.
hours for $300 is what I got paid back then. Like now with inflation, it would be like, I don't even know what they pay in fine dining now at like Alinea or some of the nicer restaurants that are in Chicago. My friend owns a place called Jong. His name is Dave Park. He's absolutely amazing. So he helped me out when I was getting sober, and he owned a place called Hand Bun. So I got to actually go and cook with Dave Park and
Okay.
just do his dishes and whatever he needed so I could learn how to make my own kimchi and learn how to make fermented everything because it's really, really healthy for your body to eat fermented foods. So like that's what I learned from Dave Park of Jong when I first got sober. So like probably the best education that I got was from a friend that just needed help with his restaurant and couldn't really afford to pay an extra guy per se. But if you're a good friend, money shouldn't really matter, and especially in cooking, because cooks support each other, and that's how it is. You know, restaurateurs, they care about numbers. Cooks care about cooks.
Interesting.
Chefs. I'll give you what I think is the difference between a chef and a cook and a professional cook. Okay, ego. That's it. That's the difference. Both can cook extremely well. Both can cook in any environment. Probably know 100 different kinds of fish. They can cut it. They can fillet it. They can butcher. They can do almost any job that you could think of in the restaurant business. But a chef will sit back and point out people's weaknesses and flaws and kind of culminate everything into what they consider a beautiful disaster.
Hmm.
Where a professional cook, which is what I consider myself, is just cooking for the people and taking the ego out of it. And the best compliment I could get is silence. You know, when I put a plate in front of 20 people and I don't hear anything for 10 minutes, I know I did my job right. That's how I know is silence, you know, because when people eat something that changes their life and you have that ability, that's the addiction. The addiction is changing people's view of food for life and making them remember that point in time when they were together with these people and had that meal.
What I find pretty cool, talk about changing lives.
That's it.
When I didn't really know you. I grew up with your sister, and
Yeah.
and I've told you this before. I'll say it again. The only thing I've ever stolen in my life is your Smashing Pumpkins Gish tape. Right, Jen was throwing a party, and I might have I did take it. I'm just going to admit it now. So I owe you a tape.
Just so if Billy Corgan hears this, I was 15 when I got that tape.
Yeah, it's
just
fun.
So you know, Billy.
Well, I think where I was going though is so I never really knew you. You're a couple years younger. You're my brother's age. I think you're 3 years younger.
Yeah.
And Jen, your sister, said, "Hey Phil, I've got some old fishing stuff for you."
Sure.
And so I drove over to the house, this big Tupperware thing of fishing gear.
Yeah, we like to fish.
Yeah, and you had said, "Hey," you'd introduced yourself because I didn't know who you were. You know who I was, and you told me I'm a chocolatier. And like a Neanderthal, I'm like, "Oh well, I don't know what that is." And you looked at me with a little disappointment in your face, and you're like, "I make chocolatier." I think that's exactly what you said.
Well, it's tough because there's chocolate makers, which is a complete profession where you take like cocoa nibs and whittle away the crust of the outside of an actual cocoa bean, and then you put that in a mélangeur and you actually mix that for 24 hours, and then you add sugar. But what that does, if you're a chocolate maker, it allows you to get to that 90% dark, 10% whatever you want. You can't get super dark chocolate unless you actually have the cocoa nibs and the sugar amount and the recipe and you make it yourself. Nobody's going to go out there and make you a 90% dark chocolate from Ecuador that has these amazing beans, that are roasted to a dark perfection, and you crack and you whittle them out, and then you have the cocoa nibs and you grind that, and the smell is just intoxicating. So that's a chocolate maker. Now, a chocolatier is somebody who takes that chocolate and it might have cocoa butter and some other things in there, shelf stabilizers and things for the customer. Because if you don't have some stabilization in there besides cocoa butter, you've seen what a Hershey, or I don't want to say a brand name, but you've seen what a chocolate bar can do in an 80-degree car with sun
We've,
in 15
it's
minutes.
happened to all of us, sure.
It's happened to every single one of us. And some of us, it's happened with kids all over the back seat,
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
and stuff. So, that's why I was, when you had asked me about, you know, if I'm a chocolate maker, and I'm like,
I think you said I'm a chocolatier, and I go, I don't know what that is, and you're like, I make chocolate, and I knew at that point in time
and
the root word was chocolate. I should have been able to. I should have been able to come to the normal conclusion.
No, I'm glad we discussed the difference, because there's chocolate makers who are like, they go to the farms, they talk to the farmers, and that would be so cool to get into
But you're a
murder
chocolatier.
of crows.
You're a chocolatier.
Yes, I take high-end chocolate, like very high-end chocolate. We use a Belgian blend. I can't really disclose what the name of the
That's okay.
chocolate, but it's a very high-end chocolate. It's used in most fine dining restaurants. It starts with a V. Anybody that cooks for a living will probably able
can figure it out.
Figure that out.
Okay.
But we do small batch, and we'd like to hit the low dose market.
Can I dial you back again real quick? What's the difference between small batch and why do you pride yourself on small batch?
Small batch is taking care of the product. If I'm making 500 chocolate bars at a time, especially with Delta and things like that, making small batches, you have control on 30 bars of exactly pretty much how something is going to set in those 30 bars. But when you start making batches of 500, with chocolate at least, there's pocketing. Okay, and what pocketing is there's 7 to 8 different layers of cocoa butter that go throughout chocolate. And the Delta sits in there, or your inputs from concentrates and things like that, they sit inside of that cocoa butter. But if you have 10 pieces in a bar, and say it's a 250 milligram bar, that'd be 25 milligrams per square, right?
Yep.
If you tested all those individuals, 10 squares, you might get 28.6, 22.3, 25.2 distribution throughout the bar itself. So you're never going to get a perfect 25 milligram chocolate anything. But if you have testing, which is what I would recommend everybody asks for, and it's something that is standard with murder of crows, is just this. It's a certificate of analysis. What this proves is that all the cannabinoids that we say are in it and how the strength of it is actually what it is. So without a certificate of analysis from a third-party source, I won't buy that edible. I won't buy...
What else could be in there?
What could be in there is anything from how it's all branched from the plant. So if that plant was grown in fecal matter or rust or hazardous runoff that somehow got into the plants, or, you know, it's a cash crop. So if it gets up to 40% grown and bugs attack it and start eating it, what do you think a farmer is going to do if he's got 500 plants? He's going to chemically treat it to keep it alive, to kill the bugs. But in turn, it kills the bugs. Eventually it flowers, but you smoke that flower that had Roundup in it or had insecticides, or, like I said, like rust or hazardous runoff from medical facilities, or, you know, you just don't know what's in the water. So for flower, I always ask for a soil sample. Did you do any soil testing on your flower? 99.9 out of, 99.9% of the time, you're going to go into a dispensary and they're going to look at you like you're crazy. That's what has to be changed, is that people have to know what conditions that flower is grown in. That's the difference between night and day, if you ask me.
Sure, it's the contaminants in what you're putting into your body, essentially.
And it's also why the black market thrives. Because the black market thrives because you probably know the guy, or know the guy that knows the guy that's actually growing it. So you see the setup, you buy directly from them, so on and so forth. But when you go to a dispensary, everything is based on percentages. That's a 28%, buy volume THC for gelato or,
Can you
bubbleberry.
dial that back? What do you mean
Yeah.
everything is based on percentages?
So you have a percentage of THC that is in every flower.
Oh, okay.
So if it's
Okay.
18% THC or if it's 28%, they can charge more for flower that has a higher percentage.
That's probably fair though, right?
Unless you go to a lab and you start growing pot and you try to fake the labs or, bribe somebody to say, hey, that's 36% instead of 34. And it happens all the time in California. Because one of the labs that we send our products to is in California, and we talk to the people who are the organic chemists or the people who are actually testing the product. We have good working relationships with 3 different testing facilities.
And one's in California. Where are the other 2 at?
One's actually in Michigan and the other one's in Florida.
So you started this company. How do you even forge those relationships across country like that?
You go after it.
Okay.
You go after the source, and it personally, like Murder of Crows is going to be nothing if we don't get to all products having tests and labs to make us transparent and to show you exactly what's in your products. Okay? It should be like going to the grocery store and buying a can of soup. It's from the ingredient that's most in it all the way to the ingredient that's least in it.
And
Okay?
even though it's been legalized, it's not regulated that highly.
It is not regulated at all. Like for edibles especially, I've gone into 3 different dispensaries, not 3 that are owned by the same people either. Because we've had people ask us, would you be interested in white labeling a product for us? That would be me making a chocolate bar that's 100 milligrams and putting, a red foil on it and then putting a wrapper around the outside that has the name of your dispensary on it. That easy. You buy it off me for a certain price,
Right,
and then
sure.
you are allowed to upcharge. And all that is an infuser's license that you get from the state of Illinois. So that's something that we will be working on to make it even more legitimate and make Murder of Crows even more transparent. And I think transparent's a huge word when you talk about cannabis, because I want to know what my flower that I'm smoking was grown in. The edibles that I have, I want a test that shows me, okay, that's what it says it is. Okay, so based on their recipe of however they're making these things, they sent one of these bars in, and this is the lab. So your recipe supports your certificate of analysis, which means that you have a transparent product. You can either put a QR code on the back of your product and someone can click the QR code and it will bring you to our website, and it will actually bring you to a lab of that product that you're thinking about buying.
Anybody else does this, or very few?
The actual farm that I used to work for, they do a really good job of it. It's the name of the farm is 3 Tall Pines, and the owner is a guy named Craig Thran. He's a fantastic businessman. He is one of the best growers I've ever met in my whole life. He runs a very clean facility. He grows THCA flower, which maybe we'll talk about in a little bit. But it's pretty much the same thing as Delta 9 flower,
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand all those.
Yeah, that's a little bit more technical. Maybe we'll stick away from
Well,
that.
no, I think I want to learn, but I need
Yeah,
to. I need to learn. I need to progressively learn. Right? I can't jump to the 5th chapter.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
No, but he was a really smart businessman, and he gave me the opportunity to kind of spread my wings and make a bunch of different chocolates and try a bunch of ideas. And he is a good person. Things just business-wise didn't work out,
and that's okay.
For which paths we were going and how we wanted. In Wisconsin, there's nothing but high dosage because everything's based on milligrams, because it's a lot of Delta 8 and now it's a lot of Delta 9, but those are extractions that are made with distillates.
So I think going on the Delta 8 and Delta 9 thing, one of the things you told me when I was in Jen's driveway,
yeah,
and you told me you're a chocolatier, one of the first things you talked to me about, I think, was emblematic of who you are, if that's fair. You talked about what you're doing for vets. And that's a subject that's, I think, near and dear to everyone's heart.
Dude,
Now,
I would like, if anything comes out of what we're talking about today, is for people to reach out and contact us. Um, Delta 8 is getting a really, really bad rap in Illinois right now.
why?
So Delta 8 is the non-psychoactive form. Consider it like acetaminophen, okay? It's a pain reliever. It can get you high if you have large amounts of it, but it's non-psychoactive. Okay,
Does that mean like the head high that maybe you get from
not the head
smoke?
high, not some of the anxiety. You don't get like all like the stress, but you also don't get some of the dry eyes and like dry mouth and things like
Okay,
some of the other things that come along with it. And I wouldn't really say that those are like
fair.
downfalls or anything like that, but
And that's Delta 8.
Delta 8 is non-psychoactive, and it's actually only sold in dispensaries now because, once again, kids are buying them from stores that are like convenience stores that are selling to minors. And that's why it got busted. But Delta 8 is the way to get veterans off opiates. So, for example, we're making an AM and a PM version of, like, we can't call them medicine, so we're going to call them vet something. But
Tell me about that without telling me too much, if that
okay,
makes
so
sense.
the morning ones are going to be a full multivitamin, and it's going to have CBG, which is sativa, in it, with a blend of Delta 8, which will take care of pain and not get them high. So, no PTSD, no flashbacks, nothing, there's no psychosis going on. There's nothing.
Because it's 8 and not 9.
Because it's 8 and not 9. Now, if you hit that, if you switch one molecule off, it becomes Delta 9, and that's psychoactive. So you don't want to give something psychoactive that could give somebody who is a war vet or in conflict anywhere something that will draw back out that PTSD while they're sleeping.
Aren't opioids psychoactive? Or I've never.
I'm not sure. So I
Okay.
can't really talk
But
about.
there's got to be a better option. This is a better alternative.
So
than-
yeah, so an AM and a PM one would be CBG, which is sativa, Delta 8 in a moderate amount to take care of pain, and then a multivitamin to help them out with things that they need throughout the day. And then you would have a PM one, which would have twice the amount of Delta 8 CBN, which is indica, which
Okay.
tends to make, a lot of people sleepy. It helps keep people asleep once they are asleep. From what we've found, and this is just people telling us how they felt, and it's been incredible with the amount of free gummies that we've been able to give out to veterans.
Look,
And-
I got to pause you.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
So your veteran initiative is free.
It's free. It's free. Yeah, we will absolutely make as many gummies in 10 packs or 30 packs as it takes in order to make sure that veterans have an alternative source to opiates and pain relief. Like, my dad was in the military for 29 years. I have nothing but respect for people that have been in the military or
Yeah.
are in the military. I've seen what it's done to my own family, things like that, PTSD and a bunch of other things. So it's not pretty when somebody comes back from conflict. War will change you extremely. From what I've seen and guys I've talked to, I haven't been in the military personally myself, but the AM and PM, and we're doing with a test group. There's only 15 guys, and there's probably 500 that are interested.
Okay.
But we've been doing this over the last 5 months, and we want to give it a couple more months because we want to see if their dosage needs to be increased from what we have in the AM ones for certain people, or people need double the double because they're 280 pounds of straight muscle and they're from the Marine Corps, and like what we have is just not going to affect them because they're 280 pounds of muscle or whatever. I mean,
Right.
everybody's body's different, everybody's metabolism is different, and everybody how they react to it is different.
So your company is taking off, but are you still in a place where you can customize an order for somebody based on what their specific needs are?
That is what the long-term plan is. Like,
Okay.
if I was to tell you what my end game for Murder of Crows would be, and I don't care if somebody poaches this, they'd be beautiful if they did poach this idea, and I hope they do, is to CO2 cold extract full spectrum cannabis rosin and start working with that. There's RSO, which is Rick Simpson oil, that he made, which actually helped with cancer and getting rid of it. There's FECO, which is a very clean version of concentrate that you can put into things to make as well. But I think a CO2 cold extraction, if those 23...
What does that mean? I'm sorry, I'm taking notes.
No, it's totally cool.
Because my brain was still on what the heck is CO2 cold extraction, and you continue to elaborate, which means I didn't hear much after that. I'm sorry, I was trying.
No,
what does that
you're
mean?
Good.
CO2 cold extraction.
We'll make it really easy.
Okay.
And this CO2 tank on the side, and the cylinder inside of the freezer packed with ice. And what happens is you turn it on, and basically these little popcorn nuggets that nobody wants to buy, and sugar leaf, which is actually the outside trim of the flower itself. It's called sugar leaf. Okay. You take all of that, you put it inside of the cylinder, and it just hydraulically, slowly, over time, just compresses it. And then what comes out the other end is an orangish black rosin that smells like it smells like a whole field of flowers in a small jar.
Does it smell good?
It
or
smells.
Is it strong?
It smells so floral that you would be like, I don't even know how to describe how floral that is. Like, that is super. Someone opens it across the room and you smell flowers.
Okay.
That's how strong it is. But if it's that strong in a cold extraction, it's been extracted with no heat, which means that it hasn't inverted and it hasn't killed any of the really critical CBC, CBGA, THCA, and a bunch of these acids, which are the precursors to a lot of other cannabinoids. Those are the ones that you want, because the acids are the ones that are going to work with, Canamed. I mean, we can't call anything medicine because we're not doctors.
You said it has medicinal-like effects?
Yeah, absolutely. Holistic, if you were to take a holistic approach, like the vet gummies that we're making for AM and PM, it's the reason it's made is to be the beginning level of what we think is going to, or what we know is going to be using that 23 different cannabinoid rosin in products so they can treat certain ailments and illnesses. Because basically with your 23 cannabinoids, whatever you're missing in your system, that's why they call it a full spectrum. Whatever you're missing in your body, like a lot of people have free radicals from, hydrogenated oils and eating fast food and all these other things. Basically, this stuff just comes in and it's a street sweeper, I swear. Like, it comes and it cleans up people's lives. It helps get rid of cancer. I mean, I've seen 10 cases at least of different diseases: MS, muscular dystrophy, AIDS, 3 different kinds of cancer. I mean, there's a bunch of people out there that, we're sending these gummies to, but they're all people that have HIV or cancer or things like that, because we want to see if in certain dosages, if this can actually aid in the recovery process or the process going through chemotherapy, or how it can heal, when it can heal. There's people that have started taking it at different times when they first found out that they had cancer and stuff like that. So we actually do the rosin in gummies, but we only give them to people that have, some severe ailments that are going on that we know of.
So I'm listening to everything you're saying. It's
sure.
It's interesting, but I want to come back to how experienced and how much of a master you are at your process. Because I think that's critical. Because I think when somebody is making the decision to purchase an edible,
Yes.
I think could be some anxiety related to that, not knowing if one edible is going to be as powerful as the next one. Is it going to be too powerful? Is there any consistency?
The consistency goes with the whole effect of making a recipe, making a sample batch, sending that sample batch off to a third party source to get a certificate of authenticity, or a COA, that proves that it's 25 milligrams of Delta 9. And it may have some majors and minors of CBD and stuff like that based on your inputs. Your inputs are basically anything that you use to put into it, rosins, distillates,
Sure.
things like that, concentrates. So go ahead.
What percentage of so if I eat this, right, what percentage of this is actually THC or Delta 9
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to CBD or any other things that might be in there? Is that regulated or tracked?
That's a fantastic question, because
So what is this then? Is
all
this
right, well, I'll tell you the difference.
okay?
And
Talk to me.
this is not a dig on dispensaries. This is not a dig on businesses that are selling D9 gummies and stuff. But in order to get through, they're using inputs that are anywhere between 18 to say 26% D9, and all the rest of it is CBD.
Is that good or bad or?
Well, you take the edible and you get tired. And people are like, oh, that was fantastic for about a half hour, 45 minutes, and then I passed out. Okay.
Interesting, huh?
The inputs that we use are 93% D9 and 90% D8. So that means that 93% of a gram, or 930 milligrams, is D9 in 1 gram, meaning that there's only room for 70 milligrams of CBD or something else. So the best way to explain it to you is like an 18 to 26 percent input gummy is not going to give you a really clean high that lasts longer, but you come down slowly. You don't go and you don't get high for 30 minutes and then boom, you're
Sure.
knocked out. Okay, for CBN or whatever it might be.
Okay.
The better your inputs, the better your gummies, the cleaner your product is, and the better it's going to taste.
And you've got full control over your processes right now.
As long as I keep the 2 organic chemists that I work with happy. Yeah.
Well, I got to ask you again.
Yeah.
How do you find organic chemists? I mean, you don't run it on Indeed, do you? I mean, how do you track these guys and girls down?
There's actually some really good places that you can go to if you know what you're doing with edibles and you're looking to talk to an organic chemist in order to, say, get a water soluble powder made. Okay, which we have. We plan on making a bunch of things like sodas and other things that we can put water soluble THC into a syrup, and then we can put that syrup with filtered water and carbonate it, and we can know exactly if that's a 5 milligram soda, or if that's a 2.5 milligram soda, or if that's a 10 milligram soda. Like, water soluble powder is the way of the future, and how people can use that, because the major cost of anything is weight. Any beer company will tell you, well, why do we have a Heineken in Missouri? Well, it's because it costs so much money, and the Heineken would be skunked by the time it hit the U.S. shores. So Guinness has a factory. All these really high end beers. They have facilities that, at the minimum, are brewing for just the United States alone. So I know Guinness, I know Heineken, I know a couple of them have facilities in the U.S. So they're doing their thing, but
so control. You've got chemists working for you.
Yeah,
You've got a whole thing. How do you come up with?
They're working with me, man, not for me. Let's get that correct, because
that's a fair statement.
Because
they're partners of yours.
They are definitely partners in something that's
okay.
If you wanted to consider it a higher power, it's probably a higher power in my eyes, because it's transparency in the product and purity, but it's tangible. You can feel this in your hands. This is going to do what it says. If it has a lab, if it has consistency, and if it has professionalism behind it, and they give you everything you need to, and we give you everything that you need to know about this. And if you have any questions, you call us, and we're more than happy to take 10 to 15 minutes to explain cannabis to people in any format that they want. Like between myself and 2 other cannabis cooks that I've trained now, they all have basically the same knowledge as I do about cannabinoids, how to use them, how to infuse them, what to put them in, what to not put them in, and how they can control these processes in order to make something the most effective product possible.
So what's the shelf life of this? How much is in this one?
That is 2.5 milligrams.
What does that mean?
2.5 milligrams is for somebody who is new to the market. So the fear that I see is people think they're taking something that's 25 milligrams and it ends up being 250. Okay. Because you just have some person that is, a backstreet chemist, and somebody just says, "Hey, I want that really strong." And you're like, okay.
That's scary, actually.
Like, what is really strong to your clientele? Like 500 milligrams. You're like,
so this is 2.5.
What? That is 2.5 milligrams. Some people need 250 milligrams just to function. Some people can eat 2,500 milligrams in one bar and still stand. And I've seen it. So it's the scale, but the thing that nobody's doing or nobody's into is giving the opportunity for people who want to switch from alcohol to cannabis. And they're scared and they don't know which way to go and how to get into it. Edibles should be the easiest thing for somebody to get into.
But I think
because everybody eats, but not everybody smokes.
I think people are scared of edibles.
Oh, yeah.
I think they are.
Dude, that's the whole reason that we're starting a business.
Tom Segura, who's a comedian, does a bit on giving one to his mom.
Oh, Joey, whatever his name,
yeah,
gave him one too.
Yeah, and
I
so
want to send that guy gummies.
I could watch that little bit over and over again because it's so funny about once you eat it, it's in your system. And,
you're on the ride.
So yeah, there's a whole lot of trust you put in your whoever you're buying this product from. There's got to be a whole lot of confidence in that person's skill sets, right?
Yeah, and you should be able to contact that person, and you should be able to talk to that person. And what I found with a lot of edibles companies is that they're so large and they produce so many gummies that talking to the person who's actually in charge of production and everything else is, nearly impossible to find. I've found some small producers across the United States that I talk to, and give advice to. Like, they call me and they're like, "Well, how would you infuse this if you wanted to make like a roasted garlic oil?" And I'm like, "Well, what's your cooking? What kind of oil are you using? What's your smoke point?" Because for like powders or some things to, to bind or melt, it has to hit a certain temperature. Okay, so say you have a powder and it has to be like 225 degrees. Well, if your oil, it only goes to like 210 and then it starts smoking, like pistachio oil or something like that.
Okay.
Like you need something like avocado oil or grapeseed oil that has a 450 to 500 degree smoke point, because your powder or distillate will only melt at 220 to 270, right? But you can make roasted garlic oil that you could drizzle on your fish, and 1 tablespoon could equal 5 milligrams. You could do ranch dressing if you wanted to. And you could literally make ranch dressing that's powderized that you could just ship across the United States, and just everybody loves it with pizza now, is what I hear. So
what?
So it's never ending.
Is this recreationally legal in Illinois?
The thing about Illinois is that you have to get an infuser's license in order to.
I meant as a consumer.
Like legally.
I meant as a consumer.
As a consumer, okay.
So I could call you up and buy 100 of these right now if I wanted to. It's
Absolutely.
Legal, it's legal in Illinois.
Yes, everything that we make is legal. We extract our stuff under the 2024 Farm Bill. So ours are hemp extractions. So it's extracted through a hemp plant, which is covered under the Farm Bill.
Okay.
And since I now live in Illinois, working with concentrates and things like that is available also. So yeah, we do small runs for people, but we do ask for minimums of like 50 or 100, on certain things, especially if somebody wants a higher dosage.
What's the shelf life of this?
Refrigerated, those things, we shelf test everything. So that thing has one of those or two of those has been sitting out for 6 months since we started the company, and there's no mold or anything with them. And that's a big thing because you can't make chocolate or something that is real food technically by the FDA. It has to be shelf stable, and they consider edibles more of something you would find in the pharmacy aisle instead of the fruit and vegetable aisle.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
I guess that's fair.
It's
right?
how it's fair, and I can understand the reasoning behind it.
Because it's a strange marriage now, right?
Yeah. I mean, what we're doing is that is a dark chocolate mousse square. So it's 2.5 milligrams of super dark chocolate. It's like an 85-15 blend. And then inside of it is a milk chocolate and semi-sweet mousse that is then...
Are you trying to get me to eat this thing? Is that what you're trying to do?
I'm trying to thoroughly explain it.
All right. No, I get it. I think you're trying to make me eat it. What do you think, Nick?
I mean, dude,
I'm staring at this thing. I'm thinking, man, I should just try this thing.
I don't like compliments, and definitely don't like complimenting myself, or patting myself on the back. But it's constantly the innovation and the creativity. And
can I try this live?
Everything. Oh, absolutely, dude. Please. Yeah.
Don't film me biting this thing. So I'm probably gonna drop it all over myself. Let's see.
No, yeah. I mean,
so this is 2.5.
It's 2.5 milligrams.
Okay.
Is what it is. We sent the lab out for it, and we got it back as 2.78. If that makes you feel better. So it came back as 2.78.
Oh, that's good.
On a lab. Yeah. So that's super dark chocolate with a milk and semi-sweet.
That tastes like
mousse in it, and it's like
this tastes like something you'd get at like the highest end.
That's what we are hoping.
Like I wouldn't think of this as something at high school. Yes. I'm not knocking. This isn't something that a kid's gonna make in brownies in his mom's kitchen when she's on vacation.
Nope. Yeah.
This is serious food.
That is something
like this is a real piece of chocolate.
Yeah, we've thought about sending people individual lockable coolers that are literally like,
you mean like what
filled with product, and they have
like what Omaha Steaks does, something like that kind of.
I don't know about Omaha Steaks. I get all my meat from local farms, Slagle Farms, Russell Road Farms. I mean, yeah, I just go straight to farmers for all my stuff. Our eggs that we use are all straight from a farm.
Tom,
there's a difference between it because
you understand the insane amount of trust. I am so comfortable with you knowing that that's 2.5.
It's 2.5.
I know that with you.
Well, I just told it is 2.78. I mean, but that one could be.
That is incredible chocolate.
2.4.
If you could give these away, even for the people that didn't want the THC in them, you could give this away and people think it's the best chocolate they've ever had.
And thank you for that.
Here's the other problem.
That
tastes so good that once I eat one, I might accidentally eat 30 more.
But
is that a problem? Do I need to lock these things up?
No, but you'll be okay if it's 2.5 milligrams and you have any sort of tolerance. If you eat 6 of them, you're at 15 milligrams.
That tastes fantastic.
You eat 6 of those. If you can,
one?
But here's the thing. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let me ask you something, because you said something else that I don't think I understood.
Sure.
But it sounded important, so I want to highlight that for you. You said your stuff is all hemp extracted.
Yes.
I don't know why you would say that. Wouldn't everything that is an edible come from hemp? I mean, there's not fake THC, is there?
There actually is. There's actually synthetic. It's
so
called
fake pot?
No, it's synthetic. It's a synthetic cannabinoid. It's called THCP, and THCP is 30 times as strong as Delta 9. It will rock your brain from one or two hits. I have taken 2 hits of THCP off of a skunk vape, and I was just like, I'm I'm never touching that
Is it
again. Like my ride home was horrifying.
so? If I go buy something if I
And
go
I,
buy
and
some,
and I make these and taste these like pretty much every day for consistency, for to make sure that the actual product is in there.
Tom, just consistency. That's why you're tasting these things. Are you really going to tell me that right now?
Yeah,
He's going to stick to it.
that's
It's
what I
just for the
want.
consistency.
Just the consistency.
I just
right
want to make
now.
sure it's consistent. Let me ask
Where's
you.
my camera?
So there's so I could go to a dispensary if I wanted to and
Yes.
buy something. Do they have to tell me if I'm buying a chemical created?
Nope. No, they don't have to tell
So
you.
you don't even know if you're eating real
yeah.
THC. It could be
Food dyes. You have food
where
dyes
people
that
make
are
the
in
fake
all
stuff. Are they making it in a
gummies.
lab in their bathtubs? Where do people make fake THC?
Oh no! That's all got to be made in a lab, like THCP and all those other things. Like you have to have an organic chemist to actually make
You
that.
know?
Yeah, it's a synthesized cannabinoid, so it's not you. You have to produce it. You
Okay.
can't grow it in nature.
Wow.
But
But not yours. Yours is all hemp extracted.
yeah, and the reason is because D9 extractions themselves, from what I've seen and from testing in labs that I've asked for, the D9 flower and the extracts that come from them aren't as clean as ones that come from hemp, because hemp, you take that rosin that we talked about, and then what they do is they call it winterizing. So they'll take 50,000 pounds of hemp and they'll smash it to get the rosin out, and then they will actually use super acids, which are naturally occurring in nature. There's nothing weird about them. And they use these super acids and they can extract certain cannabinoids that they want out of that. And they can winterize it. And by winterizing it, you take all the weed taste out of it. Like in any of these edibles, do you taste marijuana in anything? Nothing.
No, I tasted phenomenal chocolate.
That's what we're going for. And that's the reason we use distillates over concentrates. They're cleaner.
These things have got to be unique to you.
Very
Very few people take as much passion in what they do,
well,
regardless of what industry they're in. You're passionate about this,
I think about it all the time.
and it shows.
I think about it all the
shows.
time. It's really kind of one of those things that's almost like, my wife would tell you, it's just defeating sometimes, because I'll see something and I'll be like, oh, I can make that into something like that, and she's just like, well, I'm done hearing it about it. But that's okay. I mean, that's kind of the rub with the business itself. I'm really happy. My wife is very supportive of what I do, even though it is technically viewed by older people and other people as kind of like, I don't want to say a dirty profession, but like, how many cannabis chefs or cannabis cooks do you know besides me in this room?
Probably none.
I have a really hard time finding people that are cannabis cooks that do edibles, because they're way more profitable on private dining and pop-ups and things like that.
Yeah, I want to get back to that, but the first thing.
Yeah.
But before we do that, can I take us in a little bit of a different direction, if you don't mind?
Yes.
I've been looking at your hat. Is that your company? Is that your logo, MOC?
Yes, it stands for Murderer of Crows.
What is it? How do you pick Murderer of Crows?
I'm
not saying it's not cool. I'm just there's got to be meaning behind it.
The meaning behind it is, crows come from different backgrounds. Like a murder of crows is 3 or more crows, but it can be up to 30,000 crows.
I don't know that. What do you mean
altogether?
Murder of crows?
So one crow is just single. It's 2 crows together it's like an attempted murder, and somebody made a joke of it. And 3 crows is a murder. It's a shirt that I have. It's like, this 2 crows attempted murder, and then 3 crows across is a murder, right? They don't come from the same nests, but they find each other, and there is a system that they have in place where they protect each other. They all eat the same amount. They all get shelter. They all get benefits, if there are, from like an abundance of food. Well, you can translate that to business if you wanted to, and have 2 or 3 cooks from different family backgrounds that are not blood related to me, but I trust them and I love them like family, and I'm willing to be the guy that makes $45,000 for the rest of his life in order to make sure that there's 20 other people that are making the same amount, but they're all getting the same bonus. They're all getting paid insurance, fully paid insurance. They're all getting this, either a monthly kickback or whatever it is, so everybody is on this. If one person gets a company car down payment, everyone in the company gets that's how I want to treat the company.
Thus the murder of crows.
Thus the murder of crows. And, being focused on humanity instead of being focused on margins and the bottom line is the only way I want to build a business. I'd rather have humanity and good mental health for cooks, especially. There's awful mental health conditions in kitchens.
That makes sense. You're bringing the beginning of the conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely
no. I mean,
torture.
I understand your passion. You've tied it all together for me.
I want to take care of cooks. I want to take care of the guys who have been breaking their back for 20 years, not getting paid anything, but they have a mountain of knowledge that they're just willing to pour out to the right person that treats them right.
I think that's a good way to grow a business, right? Is put your people first. I think that's if you take care of your people, they'll take care of your clients.
In the end, if you're driving a Lamborghini around and stuff, I mean, to me, getting from point A to point B is the only thing that's important. I mean, I drive a Honda Fit. Do you know how hard it is to get on and off the highway in a Honda Fit? It's like you have to floor it just to get on the highway, and it's like,
well, I saw a meme today.
It's awful.
I saw a meme today from somebody I think we went to high school with, but it basically said, the Maserati and the Toyota, they'll get you to the same place in about the same amount of time. It talked about the equivalencies in the home and what really matters,
Sure.
or, how a home is just as where you lay down to go to sleep, right? And so
Yeah,
it drew these things, how really the material things aren't important. What's important is what we give back, which is, I have a family history of a lot of veterans in my family history.
yes.
And so I think the thing that got me when I met you outside Jen's house was what you're doing for veterans.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's the biggest thing that I would want to get across.
Well, here's the thing about and I'm proud of my country and I'm proud of everything that
Absolutely.
has to do with it. But I think a lot of people talk about what we need to do for vets,
Yes.
and not a lot of people do it. And so when I see somebody taking somebody taking action, I think it's pretty cool. So when I was in high school, my parents wanted me to go to college.
Sure.
My dad was the first one of his siblings, really in our entire family, that went to college. That's where he met my mom.
Okay.
They wanted me to go to college. I did not want to go to college.
Yeah.
My grandfather was 44th Infantry, World War II. My uncle was a Nam. Both came home alive.
Wow.
We learned that they were both pretty decorated people, and their stories were pretty neat.
Yeah.
And so when I was a senior, and I don't even know if my parents know this, so I hope my mom doesn't listen to this, but they wanted me to go to college, set an example for my brother and sister. They were younger. And there's an Army recruiting store right next door to the Dairy Queen on 63rd Street, by the high school.
Yeah.
I walked in there as a...
I went into the same one.
I walked in there as a senior, and I was a built kid, right? I had played, college ball or a high school ball.
Yeah.
And I started filling it out, and I asked the guy very casually, I said, do you guys accept type 1 diabetics?
Yeah.
He's like, why do you ask? I'm like, well, my buddy's a type 1, diabetic, and he's interested too. And he's like, yeah, we won't take him. So the guy sits there unless we continue to fill out the paperwork. And after maybe 30 seconds, it felt like an hour because I knew he was watching me.
Yeah.
And he's like, we're going to find out. I look up at this guy, pretty jack guy, and his, in the camouflage. He's
Yeah.
like, I'm like, you're going to find, he's like, we're going to find out you're a diabetic. There's no way you're hiding that from us.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe I could do it. He's like, get out of here. He wasn't nice, wasn't thankful. He's just like, get the hell out of here, man. Stop wasting my time.
Yeah.
So I always felt like I wanted to be part of the flag too. I think of our vets as, I look at an American flag, I think of my family as being part of the stitching.
Sure.
If that makes sense in that flag.
The needle worker, the backbone of America.
Yeah. And so I wanted to do that too, but I couldn't. And so when you said you were doing stuff for vets, it just resonated with me, and I'm like, I got to get this guy on here, and share with people what you're doing. And
I think they're the least taken care of, on top of homelessness, and that's something that, my gosh, if I could get, the Biden administration to build me a kitchen and get a 501c3, we would be happy to cook for homeless people all day long, if that was possible. But, funding wise and stuff like that, I would love to have a soup kitchen that is, like, John Bon Jovi, he's got Soul Kitchen in 3 locations in New Jersey. And so I applaud, John Bon Jovi. He's got Soul Kitchen, and you walk in and he's cooking there 4 to 5 days a week.
Is he?
Yeah, man. And I obviously he's, part of my childhood being in Bon Jovi and stuff like that, grew up on the band. And once I heard that he was doing this Soul Kitchen stuff, you go in there and you can order off the menu and your food is free.
Pretty cool.
And it's based on donations. That is the whole pay it forward aspect of life. And these things that we're making for veterans, it's just to make their lives better. It's simply to make their lives more manageable without the, opiates that have the, for a lot of older veterans, what we've noticed is constipation. Like, they can't pass anything when they're on their opiates.
The opiates do that.
The digestive tract slows down the older you get.
Well, an opiate is obviously a much harder drug than an
it's a powder. It's, like a jelly or something that's made out of gelatin or pectin is going to, as it goes down, it's going to coat your stomach lining and your small intestine and large intestine as it breaks down. And it's going to aid in the process of digestion. And we found out huge differences between guys that have, especially with like prostate cancer or people with colorectal cancer. We found guys that have either had that or they're in the process of it. When they take these gummies, like, they don't get up in the middle of the night and pee 3 times anymore. They don't, when they fall asleep, they stay asleep.
That's really cool.
And it's just feedback from these guys, and I'm excited for, being able to come up with something that these guys can trust. It gets them off of something, like how I look at veterans is, if I give you 30 a.m. and 30 p.m. gummies, okay, and you pound all 30 of them, you're not going to die. But if you have 30 OxyContin, not to pick on Oxys or pick on Dilaudid or whatever, I don't care.
It is what it is. That's all
right. I
right.
don't care who the pharmaceutical company is. It's like, you're making your money, you're doing your thing, whatever. But if somebody eats 30 of those, it's lights out. And with veterans, there's a high suicide rate. And
was it the 21? Is that what?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that not only saddens me, but empowers me to make a decision that says, I'm going to take my time, I'm going to take my money, I'm going to take my product, and I'm going to put it where my mouth is.
Super cool.
I'm going to do it.
Real quick, are these ones 5?
No, those are 25s, dude. That is. And just be able to square off.
What was
that? Sorry, bro.
The marshmallow?
Yeah.
I want 100 of them tomorrow.
I can't do that.
I'm joking. Oh my gosh.
Those are really hard to make, actually. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, dude. There's some stuff that.
I just want to try it, but I don't like.
Well, one of these boxes is.
I just ate. They're gone. I ate the only one, man.
I was like, no, one of these boxes is for you, and one of these boxes is for. So
I just ate his stuff.
I made for Phil.
We'll figure it out. There's plenty here, and we'll give you some cash.
Look at who you know. It doesn't matter. Like, money to me for this kind of stuff for friends, like whatever you need, it's okay.
That marshmallow thing.
Yeah, dude.
I've never eaten anything like that before in my life. It was crunchy marshmallow. It was like,
yeah. Well, it
was a solid.
Yeah.
It was good, and I'm going to be really high before this thing is over. So that's
No,
all right.
so it's like marshmallow fluff, and then there's buttercream, which makes it at a cold temperature. When you mix the two, it's marshmallow fluff buttercream.
All right. Well, I guess we're back. We might as well. I mean, it's just phenomenal stuff. I guess that's where we are, man. So
I'm feeling good.
yeah, I mean,
Feeling
it's
good.
it's fantastic.
Hey, I have some questions for you. Is that okay?
It is. But
All
can
right.
I ask you what? Okay, go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So just for murder of crows, just for small business owners out there, in your business, you do insurance and a lot of other things that really help people out, especially like me being small business owners. Is there a way you could talk about, what things you can offer to small businesses or new opening restaurants, possibly, in order to give them, the liability coverage that they need for patrons? If there's vehicles that need to be insured, which there is for catering and almost any specialty, but also, insurance for employees, and how many people is that, so on and so forth. I've been wanting to ask you like 100 questions about insurance things and investments, and like, you are a one-stop shop.
I am.
And I think that that's super, super cool. And I think that people should hear a little bit about like what you do and what we're kind of going to be working on for Murder of Crows.
Well, yes, I do insurance and securities.
Okay.
And when I say insurance, I'll focus on that first. But on the insurance side of things, we help individuals and small businesses.
Awesome.
And we help them really with all aspects of insurance. It could be key person insurance. It could be commercial general liability. It could be their work comp insurance. The big thing today is the big thing today is health insurance, right? Nobody loves their health care insurance. Nobody loves where premiums are going.
Yeah.
So it seems to be one of the first places people want to go.
Yeah.
And not to mention taking care of ourselves, and our health insurance is a big, important part of that plan on how we take care of ourselves.
Yeah. Or what job you're allowed to take, because it offers such good insurance that say you're a couple with kids and your wife's a teacher, she's going to get governmental benefits that are going to way out, supersede whatever you would get on the private market,
Well, I don't think it's new. I think that consumers today, when they're looking for where they're going to work,
yeah,
right, I think looking at the benefits package is a big part of what they look at.
Sure.
I don't think enough Americans look at it. I don't think they scrutinize it enough.
Sure.
Right. So some people say, yes, I've got health insurance, and yes, we've got a 401k, but I think they should understand the match of their 401k plan. They want to make sure that they're maximizing those benefits. When they look at their health insurance too, they should look at other policies that they might have with that. A long-term disability policy, a short-term disability policy. All those things are components that I think help somebody keep. We've discussed health a couple times today, whether it's our physical health or mental health.
Of course. But
I think financial health,
yeah,
is an important part of the American household. I really do. And I think it's something that we need.
We need trust.
I think you're right.
We talk about it in the edibles business, but the reason I wanted to ask you and talk about it is because you're one of the most trustworthy guys I've ever met. And I'm just being honest with you. And that's the reason I'm willing to put all my business towards you in a bundled deal, which, I know is going to work in my benefit, because I know you as a person and I know the quality of person that you are. So that to me,
pretty high compliment. Thank you.
To me is the same as, well, I mean, you've given me a lot of compliments about what I do professionally, but also, somebody in your shoes, I'm a cook. I don't know anything about long-term investments, short-term investments, like crypto, 401ks, what we should match, what we could match, for our employees, for Murder of Crows, the liability insurance, the car insurance for the vehicles we're buying. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into a small business that, I think people should reach out to you and contact you, especially restaurants, because I've never met somebody that really is authentic and doesn't get you off the phone in 10 minutes or less and try to get you a policy. Basically they're just cold calling all the time And if there was somebody that I could point somebody to, which I finally found in you, with honesty and truth, and you're one of the nicest people I've met, plus one of the most professional. So I hope you take that,
It's a huge compliment.
to heart, bro.
These are now
I
big shoes to fill. You're setting me
no,
up here.
man, no, I mean it. I mean
Thank
it.
you.
On the other end of like different businesses, and that's why I think we're in the same room together right now,
I
is
agree.
because we're both professionals. We're both looking for transparency in our companies, and we're looking out for the better interest of humanity. And I think those three things together, if you're willing to start a business and focus on just those three things, I think you're going to be successful no matter what you do. Because the world's bigger than me. I'm just a piece of sand in, the grand spectrum of time, you know, in all of whatever I have talent wise, it's still nothing in comparison to what else is available to connect to in the world to make your life a better place.
What I have found is, and you said it a few times, and I said it about your business, transparency is critical.
It's the
Um,
it's the number one.
I think it might be number one,
It
but I
has to
think
be.
you also want to work with somebody who is also a constant student. So one of the things that I
Yes.
try to do is I try to sharpen the saw pretty regularly, whether it's watching, self-help videos or reading books or audiobooks. You're always trying to get better. Because I
Yes.
don't think I'm in an industry that will never be perfectly mastered.
Yep.
And I say that because it's a moving target.
Sure.
What's happening in the insurance world right now, the insurance companies are moving the target a little bit.
Okay.
Policy coverages are changing, contracts are changing, some of the language is changing,
Sure.
right? Which is forcing the consumer to make decisions that they've never made before,
Okay.
right? Because you have to cost mitigate somewhere, right? The American consumer is under all types of pressures. Look at the small business owner.
Of
You've got to
course.
find the right people. You've got to pay the right people the right amount. You need to bring on the right partners to delegate certain parts of your business out, whether it be a 401k plan person or somebody with your group health.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I think with these rising costs, a lot of the time they're passed on to consumers,
Hmm.
which is fair because we have to keep the business and the business operating. And I think the consumer is okay with that because they want the good business there.
Yes.
Fair.
Of course.
And so what I think has happened to consumers is I think they're going to need to rethink how they manage some of their liability exposure in the household and how much they're willing to self-insure for.
Sure.
I think it's just going to take a new layer of the third approach is what I was going to is transparency. It's constant education. But I think it's taking a consultative approach. And people in sales throw that term around quite regularly.
Yeah.
And maybe have even taken some of the value away from that word,
Yeah.
right? But we want to make sure that we're educating our consumers. And as you educate your consumer, you're empowering them to make the right decisions. Nobody likes to be sold anything, but people like to buy. And the reason they like to buy is because they're buying something that's good for them or their families. It increases their situation, reduce costs, whatever the benefit is of that product. And I think in today's day and age, we have people that are policy peddlers. You said pushing policies. We call them policy peddlers
Okay.
that maybe don't even understand the contracts that they're selling.
Exactly.
So like today, we had a 30-day policy delivery meeting for a lady that purchased her condo insurance from us. So at day 30, we do a 30-day review, and I
Mhm.
literally go through her policy contract. And I don't read the 108-page document to her, but I do point out where definitions are, some things that might impact her personal policy. And then we review those things and reiterate what we talked about when she selected those coverages.
Yeah.
So we know moving forward that she's in the best position possible if that once in a lifetime event occurred. And so I think the other thing from an education perspective is there are things, I'm going to flip to personalized homeowners insurance right now.
Sure. Go
One
for
of the most exciting products to talk about. I mean, people love talking about their insurance policies. But I'll tell you what people don't like. People don't like
Yeah.
calling their guy
Hmm.
when the house is on fire or the roof is leaking and then finding out a week later that something they have a need for isn't there.
Yeah.
So we went to high school with a girl, and I can't use her name, but she was a
course.
few years older than me,
Sure.
and she was with a competitor. and we were a couple $100 more than
Mm.
the competitor at the time.
Mm-hmm.
She could not move forward with the policies because she needed that $200. She was a single mom.
Sure.
About 3 years later, she called me up and said, Phil, my roof is leaking. Do you think I've got coverage? And I said, you got to call your guy. I don't have your contract. I almost said her name. I
Scary,
don't know
dude.
your contract.
Yeah.
So she calls me up. True story. And she's like, Phil, it's covered. Thank God. And I'm like, well, how did you know about it? She's like, well, the floor was wet. The floor was wet in the kitchen. So I don't hear from her again for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
It might have been a week. I don't know. But she calls me up. She's like, Phil, nothing is covered.
Oh, no.
He had sold her what is called a broad form policy. Broad form, it's not the worst type of policy in the world, but it has limitations on what perils are covered.
Okay.
So he was right. The roof was covered.
Financial perils? You mean
Perils being the type of loss.
Okay.
Lightning, fire.
Whatever.
There's 19 or 20 different
damage.
perils.
Yeah.
But broad form might not have every single peril covered. I'll
Got
give you
it.
an example. So she calls me up. She's like, Phil, this is going to cost me $17,000. And so I thought you said you had coverage. So
Yeah.
well, the roof is covered. I got $1,500 for that, less my deductible, but the subsequent damages weren't covered.
Sure.
So it was a slow leak. The water traveled, through the roof, went through across a joist, down 2x4s. She's like, so all the other damages are not covered because I have a broad form policy. Most declarations pages that you'll get from your carrier don't even identify what perils are covered. It is buried somewhere in the contract language. And while people need to make decisions with their pocketbooks,
Yeah.
and if that's the right decision at the time, I support it.
Sure.
All I'm saying is going back to the education piece.
Yes.
After you discuss that with a client, they make the purchase. It's important day 30 to look at them one more time, explain to them what they have. So if there's any questions, you can address it there
Yes.
before you have an invoice for $17,000.
Yes.
And so that's where I think the consultative approach, I think intentions are good. I think we're in a world of very good people. I do. But I don't think that you can consult if you're not an expert on your product. And I think we see a lot of that in my industry, if that's fair.
No, agreed. It's not. I'm not saying I'm the best cannabis chef in the world. I'm not saying I'm even close to that, but I know a lot because I've been studying and feeding my brain and doing what I'm doing on a personal level, and then still taking classes on organic chemistry from like MIT. They're free classes that are offered from some of the best universities in the world.
And you're still doing that stuff.
Yeah, I still do. I look into organic chemistry. I look into, environmental stuff, food sciences a lot. I do a lot of reading on, business and capital and the moving markets and things like that, because cannabis is a brand new thing. And, kind of maneuvering the business itself is really, really tough. There's gray areas in a lot of things in Illinois. There's gray areas, everywhere. I mean, and to probably put out the best example of a gray area right now is President Biden has told the FDA to take marijuana from a Schedule 1 drug and make it a Schedule 3.
I don't know what that means.
Okay. It means that it went from being like Class 1 felony, like for a pound or something. That's the same as crack cocaine, heroin, things like that.
So Class 1 is the hardest drugs.
You're going to jail.
Okay.
You're going to jail, basically. 100 things of oxy in your pocket. You're going
because it's a Class 1 drug, or okay.
It can kill you.
Okay.
It's very dangerous. So like now, it's been like Schedule C, or it's 2 steps down from what it was.
What does that mean? Is it
in
like
the Nixon
where alcohol
era?
is?
It's where like it's basically in a category that is so softened that it's treated almost like, I guess, like not even a Xanax or anything. I would have to look up exactly what drugs are in the same class as it now. But he's asked for it not to be federally legalized, which is, I don't know, that's between Democrats and Republicans, and whoever wants to be the party that finally federally legalizes it in all 50 states. I mean, there's a lot of things holding them back from doing that. the United States owns the patent for the Delta 9 cannabis plant. And I don't think they want to give that patent up. So that's, you're not really supposed to be able to patent a plant because it's naturally occurring. It's natural. It's from nature. It was here before we were. And somehow they got a patent to be put on the Delta 9 plant, and then they made it federally Schedule 1 in the Nixon era.
So moving it down, obviously, is probably the right thing to do. Let's be fair. I mean, marijuana is probably not as dangerous as
Alcohol
as heroin.
or pills or anything. It's marijuana. I mean, gosh, if there's anyone out there that is still stigmatized and pushed by, it being the worst thing in the world, and it turns people into lazy, pathetic, this and that, and it's like lack of motivation, opportunity, and a quality job that you like doing are the depressants of America. If that makes sense. We have a whole
I think so.
we have a whole generation of undereducated, underutilized people that think they're going to make it famous on YouTube or Instagram or whatever platform, TikTok. I mean, I don't know. And get followers, and then you get more followers, and then they pay you because of advertisement. And there's literally kids, I have friends that have presented their parents with an actual business plan to do and buy the recording equipment and all the stuff that they need to create a YouTube channel for themselves. So instead of going to college, which was the old traditional thing, and now the big thing is trades because all your baby boomers are retiring. So now there's a huge push for the trades because kids coming out of high school, I mean, you can make within 3 years $32 to $38 an hour.
And
by the time you're 21 years old. Yeah. I mean, how much money is your buddy in college making when he graduates and gets his first sales job because he got a communications degree or something like that? He's making 55, 60K and he's slaving away. And a guy who's got
I think that's very well said.
And a guy who's got a union job by the age of 24 he's banking $150,000 if he's working full time. And
if they do it right and do their pension credits, and they work enough hours to get the right pension credits, they're retaring before the age of 62 in many instances, depending on when they start. Also, I think the best part about it is the
unions.
Most unions are pension, right? These guys
have
and
a
gals
fund
retire
which
with
is
pension,
millions to billions of dollars, which actually has a lot of financial shifting weight in the markets, and you can recover with that much money in 401ks with, I don't know, like the 134 electricians union, they got to have like 40,000 members. I mean, you have huge unions, especially in Chicago, and I think that's the way to go, is for more people to unionize and be able to get better benefits and a better cut. Or the alternative would be to find somebody who's all-encompassing for a business that can offer you something like you've just discussed. And I think that would be cool. And I think that the thing for restaurant owners and things like that, a lot of them, and most of my best friends are Hispanic. They're cooks. They've been in the kitchen for 10 to 20 plus years. I speak fluent Spanish, so I don't even speak English in the kitchen to them and stuff because I respect them. I respect how hard and what they've gone through just to get to America alone. It costs like $8,000 to get over to the United States. And if you get bit by a rattlesnake or something bad happens, they leave you. So most Americans don't understand what Latinos go through, and now they're like, oh, we're being overridden by Hispanics and this and that. And it's like, well, if you had the choice between genocide and freedom, what would you choose?
I think they're good points.
I mean, it's pretty easy. But my best friends being Hispanic, they would love someone to come in with bullet points. This is what your policy is going to cover. Okay, if you get a roof leak, if your fire alarm system, or if your your Ansel system goes off, because it was an accident and something gets broken, that would be covered. This would be covered, that would be covered, that would be covered. And somebody who's a professional cook, that's Latino, if they know that all those things are covered, one restaurant is ran by, my friend Carlos Frias of Niche Catering, Niche, and it's in Westmont, and it's the best catering place in Illinois by far. So Niche Catering, there's your shout out. And Carlos Frias are two of the best. It's the best thing catering that you can get. Period. But guys like that work in the kitchen with him, they would love, and they split off and they open other restaurants and they go on and they do their own adventures and stuff like that.
I think that's really you need a coach too when you do those types of things, so you understand all the financial aspects of doing a spin-off business or a secondary business like that. It's important to have good advisors in your life.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to have an advisor too that might understand what he or she is talking about, and are always willing to learn something too, because nobody ever has all the answers.
Of course,
we just want to get that right general doctor,
if
you will, that points us in the right direction and
Sure.
can get us to the specialist when we need them. But
yeah,
I agree. I think the other big thing for business owners, kind of before we wrap this up, is I think it's important that business owners understand the benefits of offering group health care to their employees too.
yes,
The biggest fear in the past, and we're going back 10, 12, maybe more years than that. I don't want to age myself.
I'm old.
But business owners back in the day wouldn't put group healthcare plans in place because the percentage of the premiums that they were responsible for paying.
Of course.
But what most business owners don't know is around COVID, and it might have been pre-COVID, it might have been during the revamping of the healthcare that we've had in the country.
Yeah.
But a business owner now, if they enroll during the open enrollment or start their group plan during the open enrollment period, they do not need to pay that required 25% of the premiums.
Okay.
Now that's important for two reasons, right? One, it can help that company stay in business.
Of
But
course.
secondly, they can go back to where we started is making sure that you're offering the benefits to employees that they need.
Yeah.
And if that employee doesn't make enough money, right, or maybe they're at an earnings where they can get assistance from the government, those plans are still in place. But if they're not able to get a discount through the government through healthcare.gov, sorry to brain fart there.
No, you're good, man.
Was it the 2.5 thing I ate? Do you think that's why I had the brain fart?
No.
Do you think that was it?
I don't think that's it, man. Like that.
Back in the day, an employer, if they put a group healthcare plan in place, of all the premiums paid, they had to pay 25% of all the premiums, whether they were their own families or their employees.
All right.
That scared business owners away.
Sure.
Right? It was an extra cost, an extra liability, and businesses are just trying to stay in business to provide opportunity. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Well, certain carriers, I don't want to say which one now, says if you open your group healthcare plan during this period of time, which is open enrollment, you will not be held responsible for paying that 25% of the premiums of your employees. Now, some people think that could not be a good thing because the employee needs help. But what people need to understand is those employees are still getting a discounted plan because it's part of a group plan.
Yeah.
So they might be offered a better, more robust plan with better coverages at a greater discount because they're part of a group plan.
Sure.
So I think those are the cases where we need to have somebody that comes in and says, hey, let's not open up the group healthcare plan today unless there's a need.
Yeah.
Let's wait till November or whenever open enrollment is, do it there and help you manage your overheads as well. So I think that's where you need an advisor that knows a little bit about different things.
Of course.
And maybe how all of those things impact the other.
Well,
Fair.
well, yeah. Well, the thing to wrap it up is that could be for a restaurant, since margins change on everything. And if you're a caterer, if you're a restaurant or whatever, depending on what you sell, if you sell alcohol or if you sell this, your margins are different. But if you can get a group policy for a restaurant or catering place or, large event planner space or whatever, and know that they are covering all their employees and it's a fixed cost, well, then they can allocate the right resources and charge.
Agree.
Maybe, okay, it's going to be $3 more per person. And why? Because that covers our employees' benefits. it's $3 per person that
And it helps
you
you
charge
retain.
more. 75 cents is here, $1 is here, and whatever else. But you're covering those things, and it's $3.
And
It's
the other,
not.
you're right.
You're
You
not
know, it's,
pulling the wool over somebody's eyes if they're getting amazing food and they're paying $3 more per person.
well,
They
I
could
think
be
the
paying 30.
I think the real hope is that it's probably worth $3 more because you've retained the best talent in the industry
That's
and
the
you're able to
bottom
bring the
line.
right people on board. So maybe the natural flow of things says that maybe you've earned that extra $3 a plate, right? So maybe it's mutually beneficial to,
To
I
be
guess, all three parties, right? The consumer, the business owner, and the employee, right?
especially, but at least in the culinary world, there's a huge gap there as well. You have a lot of people watching MasterChef and oh, dude, just some of these shows that are out there, and there are some talented cooks that go on those shows, but for the most part, I think it just gives false hope of somebody who maybe 18 to 25, or maybe it's a change of career at 40 to 50, and you're like, okay, well, I live this life where I think I want to cook. Anthony Bourdain said it the best. He's like, I don't even care if it's an Olive Garden that you go to work at, but go work in a kitchen, any kitchen, for 1 year. And if you survive and you still love it, then it's meant for you. Because, he also said the kitchen is the last place for derelicts, misfits, and the forgotten to be able to rise in power and show talent.
That's cool. Who said that? Anthony Bourdain?
Anthony Bourdain, yeah.
Well, let's do this then real quick.
Sad, but yeah, the dude was a cook. The dude was, he was a cook's cook, and a lot of people respected him, not for his narration, not for whatever else, but what he couldn't put up with. Like, he didn't want to put up with, from what I understand, is all the television stuff and all that other crap. It's like he just wanted to go back to cooking. And I think that's what real cooks or professional cooks, that's why I'm back doing this.
Super cool. I think that says a lot about who
It's
you
a complete
are
change,
and what motivates you.
between making edibles that are like caramels and, cool things like that, and being able to do dinners for, we've done dinners for 10 people, we've done dinners for 20 people, and then we've done appetizers, which are like past hors d'oeuvres that are dosed, but they're all micro-dosed. So you can have a steak sandwich with caramelized onions, horseradish sauce, garlic aioli, and on a like nice homemade potato bun with Wagyu beef, and you can have 2.5 milligrams in that one slider. So you can eat through the whole party and maybe have 25 or 30 milligrams and be full. So
and then hungry again because you had 25 or 30 milligrams. Hey, real quick. So
that's where the late night food comes in, bro.
so let's wrap this up. How do people find you? Tell us a little bit.
My name is Tom Nendick. You can reach me at murderofcrows.net, and my email address is on there. It's tom.nendick@gmail.com. If you have any inquiries about anything, if you have questions especially, feel free to hit me up with an email and stuff like that. We're a legitimate business that does cannabis right, and we do it the right way legally. So we are going to be having a list of products that are going to be coming out within the next 45 days or so. Chocolate's not really a summer type thing, so we're going to focus on getting all our ducks in a row and then launching in the fall and have, some really good deals, $200 boxes for $100. Or every time if you buy 10 of something, I'm always going to give you 2 extra. So you can consider that either 2 extra or 20% off. Every time you buy 10, you're going to get 12. And that's my way of just saying thank you for ordering from us. That's what it is. It's, you could put your money anywhere, you could put your business anywhere, but if you trust me and you try me and you want to see what we do and what we've been eating and talking about, murderofcrows.net. That's pretty much what sums it up.
Tommy, thanks for coming.
Phil,
Great job.
amazing,
Thanks,
man. Yeah.